Neha.
Yes.
Welcome to Pivot.
Thank you, Yasmin.
We've never met.
We haven't.
We've seen each other, I think. Like, I've seen you in your restaurant.
I've seen you in my restaurant, for
I
sure.
saw you when you were pregnant in the main.
Like, recently?
Yeah, you were pretty pregnant. You were pretty pregnant.
Oh, that's, what, like Motor City one?
No, the one in Business Bay.
Oh, yeah.
And you were sitting at, I think
the bar?
Yeah.
With my husband and our friend.
Yes,
yep.
Exactly.
That's how little I go out. I know exactly which outing you're referring to.
Yeah, I mean, I go out a lot, but I still remember the moment. I was like, she doesn't know me, but I know her.
That's nice.
Yes.
I wish we had spoken then.
I know. Well, here we are. Doesn't matter.
Exactly.
It's all good.
It's true.
So I feel we have so much to talk about, whether it be the food scene, your restaurants, what you've accomplished in the last, I want to say 7 years, because that's when I started following you, but it's obviously been a much longer time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's when somebody says that out loud, 7 years. Because I always feel like, because I'm self-taught, I always feel like, I've just started doing this.
Yeah.
But, 7 years.
So 7 years from 2016 when you started your supper clubs.
Yes.
To 2023, where you just opened your first location, well, second location, but first in London, in one of the most iconic department stores in the world, Harrods.
That's it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just as confused.
Come on, that's crazy.
I don't know. I think any journey has such an evolution to it, as a self-evolution, that when you get there, you're really like, you're just as surprised in so many ways. And I think when you have momentum, you're not stopping and really thinking about things that much. So I feel like I'm here and I know how it happened, but I still don't know how it happened.
Do you consider this a success story?
For myself, absolutely. I feel like this wasn't, I don't know, I'm a pretty ordinary person and very extraordinary things have happened for me. And I'm very present in that kind of, thinking. So I feel like, this is a very successful story for me. It's
really, 7 years is a short period of time.
I
think most businesses find it quite difficult to even get their feet off the ground when you're a new business. I mean, many people around me have their own businesses, even restaurants, and it's not an easy industry to be in.
For sure.
It's extremely competitive. So you've gone from supper clubs to opening up KINOYA in Dubai. In what year was that?
2021, straight after COVID.
Wow, so 2021 was Dubai location, and then very shortly after that has been a month ago, Harrods.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so I think we'll go into the business side of things soon.
Sure.
But what I want to understand is more about you, because you have a personality that comes across a certain way on social media.
Oh my God, I want to know what this is.
Not at all negative, but you are a strong character. And I feel like also a lot of friends of mine who have been to your supper clubs have been like, wow, Neha's intimidating.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I want to understand, does it shock you when I say that? Or do you feel...
Yeah. It
really?
Does. Yeah, I think, because, it doesn't shock me, but I don't know if that's true, but I think my husband would agree as well. Like, I come across that way.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think if I had to say characteristics that I feel from you, just and not knowing you well at all, looking at your social media.
Yeah, you're a good
I don't know you.
person too.
I would say smart, creative, meticulous. Your product sells itself, which is your skills and your ability in what you do sells itself, which is why I think, you've just done so well with such an incredible product, and the product is everything. It's you. It represents you. It represents your passion.
For sure. I think also maybe the intimidation factor, if it comes purely from a point of view of, there's a lot of struggle, right? And I think people who come from any kind of background of struggle and having to prove themselves, you just become hardwired to be a little bit more tough. You have to be.
Totally.
And being a woman, being in, I think there's just so many factors that...
Do you feel maybe a little skeptical? Of people around you and judgment?
No, not really. I feel like I'm so hard on myself.
Oh, wow.
That when I look at competition, or when I look at somebody who's doing something really cool in the same arena, my takeaway from that is always, what can I learn from this? And then it's more about me and like, what could I be doing better?
Yeah.
Am I smarter than I was in my business kind of understanding of what I'm doing? And I think the last 7 years, as short a period of time as it seems, I have grown so much in that time, and I have learned so much about myself. And
what have you learned about yourself?
That I'm really, really tougher than I ever thought I would be. And do
you think being tough on yourself in hindsight was a good thing and helped you get to where you are?
I think, again, that's just like, I'm hardwired that way. I think I just come from a place where, I think it's an Asian thing as well. Like when you're Indian, we are not taught to be soft on ourselves, and our conditioning is very much, make it work for yourself, or, what's the alternative? And for me, it's always been about, well, what do you want your life to be? Interestingly enough, I was having a conversation with somebody. I'm pivoting a little bit.
I was already.
I was having a conversation with one of the people we've hired in London, very young person. And I love the mentorship aspect of what we're doing, what I'm doing at this stage in my life now. But I remember saying to her, like, she was really dropping the ball. And I remember saying to her that, you can go through your whole life just coasting and just, you'll have a life that, I don't know, means something to you, but it'll never be like your full potential. And I think you have to come to crossroads where you say to yourself, do I want that life, or do I want something really extraordinary for myself in my own right? And I think that philosophy has just kept me going. And I never think it's an absurd idea when somebody says to me, well, that's a bit far-fetched. And I'm just like, why? Why is that far-fetched? My whole life in so many ways has been, against a lot of odds. So
I feel like you don't find anything far-fetched.
No, I don't. I really don't.
So if somebody else has done it, or you can see it, or you can visualize it, you can get it.
I think it's something, if I want for myself, like, I have my own goals, and I don't think, I never look at someone else and think, I want that. I feel like, what do you want for yourself? Like, what's your idea of, whether it's, freedom, wealth, happiness, all of that. What's your idea of it? Define that, and then achieve it. And I don't think that for me is far-fetched. I feel like I've proven to myself over and over again that, there's a formula to that. And I always say that if I don't succeed at a certain task, it's not for the lack of trying. If it doesn't work, and I think failure is very important too, but nothing is out of reach.
Totally.
From your own, capacity. Once you know that, then go for it. Like, go 110%.
I feel like you're talking to me at the perfect time about this. I'm just like absorbing it all, and for myself, it's just amazing. It's
so true, though. I feel like I hear this all the time, and people will be like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? Or, somebody will say, I don't know, that word, I wish. I just don't get that. Yeah. I've stopped using that word because it's...
I fully agree with everything that you're saying. I believe that anything that I've ever wanted, I've been able to achieve.
Right.
It's now being at a point of my life where I'm like, what do I want?
Okay.
It's a crossroads in that sense. Where am I? What do I want? Where am I going?
But isn't that a really exciting place to be?
Yes and no. I'm excited, and I'm also thinking, maybe this is it, like, which is fine. I'm grateful. Thank you for, like, I'm really grateful for my life. But I know when I was younger, when I was, much younger, in my teens, in my 20s, and even early 30s, I know what I wanted. In a way.
And it's probably better than that, where you are now. There you go.
Yeah. And then I'm like, well, I'm 36. I have 3 kids. I don't know if I can get there. I probably can't get there. I've probably reached my cap. Like,
no, you have not.
I know.
Absolutely,
this is why
have
I'm
not.
happy you're sitting in front of me. Yeah.
And I like, that's the beauty of it. I call it like a human writer's block, right? Because, like, if you're a creative person, or if you're just savvy in ways,
I'm more creative than I am.
There you go. So if you're a creative person, you'll go through, like, especially because you're a creative person, you'll go through like phases where you feel like, oh my God, that's it. I've peaked. And then you just need to, like, harness that kind of almost like that downturn of it. And almost always the better thing comes out. And that's why I feel like, no, this is just an endless process. It's limitless.
It's completely endless. And then, I don't know, you hear all these wonderful stories about people that started their, you know, jobs, businesses, careers, or journeys when they were in their 40s, when they were in their 50s.
Yeah.
And like, look who, anyways, yeah, that's just me digressing right now. So, I want to know about you as Neha before your food journey. So I'm assuming your food journey started in 2016 with the Supper Club?
No, it started earlier than that. So I want to say end of 2014, because I was doing a completely different thing.
Yeah.
I was doing food for myself in the sense of playing with the idea of what I could do with food at least a year and a half, 2 years before the Supper Club. The Supper Club was very much in its like conception by the time it started. So there was a backstory to that already, and I was a producer for 10 years. And that's what I did for as long as I can remember.
Okay.
And I was, you know, doing well at that. It was fine, but I was very quickly starting to understand that this was not like, it didn't spark joy. More and more as the older I got. I always loved food. And because I was always facilitating for creative people, I always felt like, well, I have this in me too, but you know.
You're doing it for somebody else.
Exactly. And so I started making food, which I always had a passion for, but I was like, I created a story of food then with the intention of just a pure creative outlet for myself. So when I wasn't producing, I'd kind of, you know, cook good food, like food, and then document it and create content around it. That word is like so big now, but back then it was just like, I'm going to take photos and post it. And I did it with the intention of no one ever following it or watching it.
Yeah, passion project maybe.
Exactly. And I think you do your best work when you don't care about, you know, how it's being perceived. Because you're free in your, you know, in your process. And people just started showing interest in what I was doing. And that was very encouraging, because it feels like, as much as I didn't start out with that idea in mind, it was validating. And then I got into ramen, and ramen I just stumbled upon, and I just feel like I am so lucky from that point of view. Because it could have just skipped me. I could have just, like, I don't know, made...
So you just kind of fell into ramen. It wasn't something that...
I literally came across it. Like, it's almost like I was making other things. I was making a lot of pho, and I knew I loved noodles and broth. And then I discovered ramen, and it was really complex, and I couldn't understand why. And the more I like delved into it, the more I realized that I really loved the process. Like, I loved how difficult it was. And again, it just was like, it was the distraction I needed.
Yeah.
And then I just started doing more and more of that. And then I want to say a year after I had been making ramen on Instagram, and I was filming everything, not filming, but documenting a lot of what I was doing. And people started gravitating towards it. And then the Supper Club came to be because I ended up, one of my closest friends now, and one of my first friends in food, Chang from 1004 Gourmet, Korean supermarket. He's a really, really well-known industry person. Him and I got into a conversation about ramen, and then at the end of that conversation, it was like, well, and I said to him, well, you got to try it. And I had him and a few other friends over.
Okay.
And we ended up like spending, you know, the whole evening discussing food and them having the food. And we weren't friends at this point. It's just somebody I got talking to, and it led on to this, what happened next, which was he went and told other people about it. And then somebody got in touch with me and said, you know, would I be willing to cook this for them in their house? And I said, well, no, that's weird, but I'll do it in my house, and maybe I'll host a few people. And at that point, it was like, I didn't even know what to call this thing.
Yeah. This is
I think somebody else said, like in a picture, they said, oh, I went to a supper club, and that's how it came to be. Because I was just hosting people to make this food that was getting a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And they came over, and it was 12 people. And that's how it snowballed. 12 people went and told other people.
Wow.
And that was it.
Completely just word of mouth.
It was.
Yeah.
It was like...
But you annihilated the social media side of things. Like, I remember following you, and just people were waiting on Instagram for you to post spots available. And then within seconds, they were just gone. I mean, no one's done this. No one's created a hype like this, I think, in Dubai. And were you one of the first supper clubs that existed?
Yeah, I think I was one of the first. I think there was one or two that were doing it. Back then, it was not, it was very underground. You weren't really supposed to be doing this.
Yeah, that's true.
So, it was very risky to do it.
Now there's a license for it, isn't
there? There is.
Yeah.
And I feel like me and the other people who started supper clubs were very, like,
need a royalty for this.
Well, I think we should just like a thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it kind of paved the way for people to understand that there is such a big barrier to entry when it comes to restaurants. And this is a very good way to test your viability for your business idea.
Very clever, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, but none of it started with that kind of strategy. It was just literally, I get to make something I make. And I was still a producer. So when I started the supper club, I was doing it once a week and I was still producing. And because I was working for myself as a producer, I could fill in my schedule around when I wanted to host.
Yeah.
So I did it once a week and then I dialed it up and then I dialed it up. And my thing with myself was always, when I can match whatever I was making as my job doing this, I would pivot. I would jump ship. And that's what I did. Once I knew I could dial it up, I was like, okay, well, then I'll just do this 4 days a week, 5 days a week. Which, now that I have a restaurant and I have infrastructure and I have people that support me in this, it was a crazy thing to do. I mean, I used to cook, clean, serve, and do admin and do my social media. So it was, but I guess
a lot of work.
It is, but then when you love something, right? Like you were like in the beginning of like finding your thing. So it was just extremely like, there was such a buzz from it as well. And that just continued for years. And then COVID happened. How many years
did the supper club until COVID?
Yeah, so I was doing it, by the end of it, I was doing it 5 days a week.
5 days a week since 2016?
So it started probably once a week for months.
Okay.
And then it just kept,
built up. Okay,
it was built up over time.
So let's say by 2017.
I was doing 3 days a week.
Okay.
And then 2018, probably 4, 5. It really, so the thing was, because then it just became my only source of income.
Then there's pressure.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure.
I was like, and I always had this fear of, make hay, because I don't know how long this is going to last. So I was amping it up a lot. I mean, my family were like, my kids were like, and my partner, my husband now, were like, there was parts of the house which was just not accessible after a certain time of the day, because I'd be hosting strangers in my house. I mean, it was 7,000 strangers in the course of 2016 to 2021.
So did your family find that period a struggle?
They were so supportive, and it's like, I think the whole thing has been a success is because everybody was on board.
Yeah.
And, they didn't gain anything from it. They were watching their mom, or my husband was watching his partner just do something that was extremely self-serving. Of course, it paid the bills, but for the most
look
part...
what it did for now. I mean, you have to look at it in hindsight, look
exactly.
what it's done.
And, there was a time when I remember saying to my kids, like, I think the end goal is to open a restaurant. And they still say it. They'll be like, we thought that was a crazy idea. And, here we are. So that went on for a couple of years. And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And that was very scary. Because overnight, supper clubs had to stop.
Yeah.
And I was like, what am I going to do? Like, my only lifeline has been... And so I started doing deliveries.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about, like, it was such a hustle.
You just had to adapt.
I had to adapt. And that's something that I feel like I am good at.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, what can I do right now to change this and fix it? And I started deliveries. And again, I was just so fortunate because, again, people responded to that. They were like, okay, well, we're sitting at home too. We'll make ramen at home. So I was doing these kits. That's the first time from I will make every element of this dish and control it to, God, I'm just going to pack it all up and hope people...
And let them do it.
Exactly. And that was going really well.
I feel like that's a sort of OCD person's nightmare. Just like allowing someone to mess up your ramen when you're so meticulous, and it's all about even the presentation, everything, the way that you do it. Yeah.
But then I think that set me up for what was going to be a future of, having a team and getting people to understand your recipe. And I think it was... I think everything was leading up to the bigger moments, because had I not done deliveries, I wouldn't know how to scale. I would not know how to, be more adaptable.
Totally.
So it was all these little elements that kind of got us to here and now.
I have to ask, what is something, if anything, that you would say during your supper club days was a group of people or one person where they crossed the line in your house, or you felt like that was not cool? That I don't know, just any experience that you had with people entering your home, eating in your house, and something, threw you off?
Never. Nothing.
Really?
I had one, and I will always, I will never, and I think most people that know me know about, there was one guest, and she literally brought down the entire table in sense of her energy was so off. And you're kind of you're putting 10 strangers, or let's say 5-6 strangers in a room. Well, you're putting 8-10 strangers in a room, and you hope for the best. And like you said, chemistry, sometimes it can just be off, but I was really lucky. It was never off. And I think I had to kind of,
I think you are the facilitator.
I had to, warm it up a little bit, because otherwise, you can't, they're in my house. I have to make sure that they feel comfortable and kind of open some kind of a dialogue for them. So I was there for that. But then after that, it was just really up to them. And again, how beautiful it was, that whole synergy of strangers coming together and, forming friendships. There's a couple that, there are 2 people that met, and they're still together.
No, they met at the supper club?
Yeah.
No way.
They're still together. And and I didn't realize, because I was seeing so many, I know the guy really well, because he was a very regular guest. He'd book quite a lot with his friends. So I knew that his partner, they're together. And I remember him saying to me a couple of years ago when I saw him, he's like, we met at your supper club. I was like, that's crazy.
That's amazing.
So when things like that happen, you just think, well, that was amazing.
Yeah.
To be able to be part of that.
Part of their journey. They met because of your supper club.
Exactly.
In your house.
In my house.
That's really special.
It is. And I think the whole idea of, I remember when the supper club came to an end, it was I did the final one before KINOYA was going to open. Well, before KINOYA was going to open, but KINOYA was in the works. And that was really emotional.
I'm sure.
It was really emotional, because it was
that was the start.
I
feel like that
it
was
really
the seed that has created, the seed planted.
Absolutely.
Was in your house. With your family, even though you couldn't really see them and they were hiding in different rooms. But it's a very, very special thing. It
really was. And I think it was I look at that corner of my house, and it's just that many people have been there.
Are you still in the same house?
I am.
Oh, special.
I am. And I think part of the reason why I can't bring myself to move is because it's so connected to so much of what my life has been. Positively.
I would feel the same way. They say not to get attached to things and material.
I know, I try.
But a house, I don't feel is material. It's I don't know, a home is where things grow, where you have babies. It's just a whole different level.
The dining table that was used for the supper club, I've obviously got a bigger table now, and it's changed. Yeah. But the dining table, I took the legs off, but the actual top, the table itself, it's still stored in my house. I'm gonna probably, my husband said,
it's an art piece or something.
My husband's saying it can be a door.
Oh,
eventually.
Nice. Is it wood?
Yeah, solid. And again, and it was, and I remember, because it was not big enough as the size of the supper club grew, I used to bring my table from my balcony into the room and make it a bigger table and obviously cover it and blah blah blah. But at the end of every night, I would take the other table outside, and I would that was also a very humbling part of that journey, because you were closing your little shop at the end of every night. And in that way, and people would come, and the whole place would be really dressed up and ready to serve. You create that ambience for people, but in the end it was just me cleaning it up and getting it ready. So there was it was wild. And people always say to me, do you miss it? And I'm like, no, because once you move on, you move on.
Yeah.
That will always hold a very special place in my life. Yeah, but
a stepping stone.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to keep evolving, and you can look back and think that was wonderful, but you can't want to be there again.
Yeah. Wow. I think it's a good time to go into your pivot, because I feel you mentioned pivot a few times, and I don't want to get to the point where you've mentioned pivot and then we
missed the pivot.
Yeah. So can you please tell me about a pivot that you've gone through in your life, positive, negative, traumatic, anything that has impacted you enough for you to tell me about, and that you feel has a huge sort of part of you as to why you're sitting here today as Neha today? I feel like there wasn't one single moment of that. Which is normal.
Right? But I mean, I think getting married very young.
How old were you?
23, 22 when I got married.
Okay.
23 is when I had my first son. But growing into my own and realizing that maybe this wasn't the journey for me, and then pivoting into the world as a single person and a single mother was a huge shift.
How old were you when you kind of left that marriage?
30.
30. Okay.
And people always say life changes at 30. Like somebody actually said to me, the day you wake up when you're 30, you will be a different person.
But you know why?
No.
Because you go through something called Mercury retrograde between the ages of 29 and 30.
No way.
So it's actually a thing.
It's a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing.
Okay.
So astrologically, there is a lot going on which makes you change. Again, I'd have to. I only really went.
I'm gonna read it up.
Yeah, exactly. Just read about it so you can prepare your sons.
Exactly.
It's a hard one.
No, it was crazy because I feel like I was 29 and then 30 I was a different person. Not to take away from that part of my life, and it was wonderful. It gave me my 2 children, and it was great. Nobody did anything wrong. It was just I became a different person. Yeah, I grew into myself, and that was hard. And it's I think I've always done the more uncomfortable thing, and I could have stayed in something that would have been fine, but I just thought I knew that there was more of what I had for myself. I wanted to achieve things that were outside of that companionship for me. Exactly, you're a team when and you have to have the same goals. And I just felt like there's something else for me, and I didn't know what it was. So that was the biggest.
That's scary.
Of course, but
and the courage that it takes to do something like that, not even knowing.
It was crazy. And you know what, at the time, because I was so young, I mean, 30 is still young, I remember people saying to me, "You're mad, what are you doing?" Like,
Why?
I didn't, and I
Can't
didn't
be that bad.
Exactly. And you're like, it isn't bad, it's just not for me. And I've always been the kind of person that will not stay a minute longer than they need to when they don't feel like they can be there anymore. So for me, it was just like, I just got to get out of here. I got to do something for myself, by myself. And again, there was this whole, like, I was around a lot of, I think society kind of makes you feel more so than not that there are limitations to your possibilities. And I was just like, no, I won't have it. I won't buy it. I don't know what's there.
You create your own limits. So if you don't believe there's limits, then there isn't.
That's it.
Society cannot put limitations on you.
But I think this is where we have to be careful with, like, going back to, I mean, we're at an age where we feel pretty established in our beliefs and whatever else, but I feel like this is the responsibility of our rhetoric to younger people, is that we have to, as society, we are intrinsically constantly told that there are limitations. Like, like, you're in a good job, you're in a, like, it's okay
you're
to be,
fine.
You're fine.
You're safe.
Like,
this is all good.
Like, this is good enough.
You should be happy with this.
Exactly. But I think, more of, what else? What else are you doing?
I actually think what you just said is so important, because if you're being told, which you are most of the time, this is good, you're fine, you should be happy with this, and then deep down, a lot of people are not happy. And you can't.
They've got this niggling kind of inner voice.
I'm not happy. So what is it? Why are you not happy? Then you have to really do the digging. Is it because of my work? Is it because of my relationships? My child? You don't know. I mean, it's endless as to.
It really is, but I think we have to explore that intuitive or intuition, or explore that inner voice. That's kind of, if it's at you, then sit down and listen to it. And I think that's, okay, so going back to the pivot, it was just making that huge move, being a 30-year-old mother of 2 children, single mother at this point now. And I had nothing. Like, I left with nothing. And that was one of the conditions, that this is fine, we can part ways, but you got to start on your own. And I was like, okay, well, and I've always believed in your choices are your own, so you're not entitled to anything, especially of anyone else's. So it was fine, but it was very difficult. And that went on for a little while, trying to just make it work. But I think, in your hardest times is when you kind of really start figuring out what you want your life to be. And for a really long time, in that time, it was just about making sure that my kids had everything that I could give them.
You went into survival mode. It's like how...
Totally.
That is... I mean, it obviously made you do amazing things because you had to dig. But then you're putting your body in this fight or flight situation, which isn't healthy.
It's really not. And I will go into that 10 years later, I know that, you know, they say the body collects or something. Yeah. Some saying like that. Yeah. It compounds. And you do pay for it at some point, whatever you're putting your body through.
In health issues.
For sure.
Emotional issues.
Yeah, or just things that you haven't even addressed emotionally, physically. Yeah, all of that.
Physical symptoms are a result of a backlog of emotional things which aren't addressed usually. But emotional is fight or flight. That's an emotional response. Your body's having that insane response, but you didn't even know it's happening.
No,
while you're in it,
you're just
unaware.
Going. Yeah. You're just going. And I think that was a lot of that period in my life was just about making sure that I gave my kids everything. Yeah. But then at the same time, I feel like there was also a part of me that was like, well, I will give my children everything, but I will also not give up on what I feel my life could be. Yeah. You know, so it wasn't like, well, I'm just going to get any job. I still maintained to be self-employed. Yeah. At the time I was working for somebody and they were really supportive. They were very instrumental in, you know, being able to just survive at that point. And yeah, that carried on. But that was the first pivot to just make a huge life change, because purely based on a self-belief that I want something different for myself. And I think my whole life's been that, you know, like...
You're courageous. You're a very courageous
very
person.
stupid.
I mean, I don't think anything that's happened has been stupid, and you know that that's not the case. No, that's just courage. Like you're a walking courage ball.
Thank you.
So that's extremely inspiring for people to hear, honestly.
Thank you.
I know a lot of people who feel stuck, honestly. Some, like, very close to me, they're stuck, and I don't even think they know they're stuck. They're just kind of... what's it called? Skiing? Not skiing.
Coasting.
Skimming. Coasting.
Yeah.
It's coasting. And I don't like that.
You know, I also
I'm not judging, but I want more for them because I care
about them so much. For sure. I mean, I don't resonate with it, but I also feel like that comes from a place of, you know, not really hitting rock bottom. I feel like when you have nothing to lose, you work in you make bold decisions. Yeah. You're
working in a different space.
You are, exactly, because you have to. You're not thinking like everyone else. I think about my children, and I think one of the few things that I have to remind them and remind myself is that my children don't have the same life as me. They have it a lot better, and I have been part of. I've made that happen for them, but I also feel like there is a lot of comfort.
So you've made your kids' life better than let's say yours
for sure.
Can you tell me a bit about your childhood, and what points of your childhood do you feel taught you and changed you?
I had a very difficult childhood. It was, I think as I'm getting older, I feel like I register it a little bit more in sense of...
Or process it maybe.
Yeah, and I, in terms of its impact, but I can only say that, it's made me who I am, which is a lot of positives in sense of resilience. Yes. But that was a very dangerous exercise because it could have gone the other way. No, I had a very difficult childhood. I was born in India. My parents are amazing human beings. They're very creative. They're musicians. Oh. So yeah, the creativity is like in our DNA. Yeah. But because they were traveling musicians and the best, in order to provide for us, they couldn't take us with them. So I was raised by family members. And I didn't really live with my parents until I was 12. Okay. And so that created a lot of lack of family values or what that looks like from the outside or even inside. Like I had no idea what a mother and daughter relationship is. So there was a lot of confusion around that, and
healthy relationships.
Yeah, for sure. I had no idea.
Or intimacy. I had no idea. All of that.
No, none. I don't even think I can fully articulate what my idea of family was. Okay. And I think I know for a fact that I'm the mother I am because I'm trying to be the mother I didn't have.
Yes.
So that's worked out really well, but I know it could have gone the other way as well.
Yeah.
So it was a very difficult childhood, and from an adaptability point of view, it was great because, you know, the family members I was living with, they were moving every 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So like things were not stable from my...
Yeah, zero consistency in terms of your parents being there to even just location.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so it was, and then I finally moved here when I was 12. And because my parents are musicians, they lacked structure. And, you know, they're just essentially like amazing, extraordinary hippies who just did not understand the concept of structure. So
I feel like that lack of structure really enables creativity.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
I mean,
like nurtures it. I'm not saying that was easy or anything, but as in, I feel that has a huge role in this creativity that you have within you.
For sure. And I think what it did was it separated my understanding of you can be creative, but you can still have balance and structure in your life. Because I saw what didn't work.
Well, you must have been mature. I feel like you're a mature.
Yeah, I mean, I had to parent my parents.
Yeah.
You know, like they gave me everything they could, but they are also, you know, they were not, they were still trying to figure it out as well. As we all are as parents.
I was about to say, I think every
parent is, and I think you have that grace to understand that the older you get as a parent, or as when you become a parent, you're just like, oh, nobody was trying to be a terrible parent. They were trying their absolute best, but they were doing it in a way that only they understood. So that was, I think from a very young age, I was, I guess, like challenged a lot. And so there was this whole resilience, adaptability, like survival mode was just constantly there. I left home when I was 16, and that's it. Like I remember doing my final O-levels and then going home, packing up, and I never lived with my parents again. And, again...
And it was a short-lived experience.
Yeah, it was. And I also knew that, in order to keep you have to know when to leave. And even if that means that for me, I did it from a point of view of, I want to have longevity in my relationship with you. So right now is a good time to leave. Yeah. And I wanted independence. I knew that because I think with all the disruption that had happened from my childhood, I was like, well, now I know how to be independent. And I'd become so formed in that way that the minute I could, I left. And from a very early age, I knew how to look after myself. Yes. So when I left home at 16, at 17,
you have all the tools. Like you don't rely on anybody, and your strength, your internal strength is so much there that's amazing. I mean, it's also, I can imagine being slightly, I don't want to use the word intimidating again, but like for anybody else coming into a relationship with you, that must be quite, do they get nervous? That you're so strong and independent that maybe you just one day decide,
I think like the good ones stay. Like my best friends know that's like they love to appreciate that side, right? Yes. And my husband is the same. Like he loves the really, really difficult things about me because he understands that's who I am. And, so I think the right people really kind of they take it and realize that actually that's part of the reason you are who you are, as the case for everyone, right? But I think people get scared and spooked and they leave, and then other people stay, and those are your friends, that's your family. So it's worth
people don't like confrontation, right? So I think that most people avoid it quite heavily. They don't like that confrontation with someone who they know might put them in their place or say something that
for sure
might come across abrasive, when it's actually just sort of how you're feeling. Yeah,
it's boundaries. And I think, but also for me, I've never really, I feel like I've been so defined in what I don't want. Maybe I didn't know what I wanted a lot of the times, but I've always known what I don't want. So when I'm like...
To do it that way around is really healthy,
right,
I think.
Because so when I'm met with something, whether it's a job, whether it's, a partnership, friendship, whatever it is, a relationship in the past, when I see that that's not for me, I can disassociate really quickly because, and that's again, from a business point of view, it's been super helpful because you're not making decisions.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're not making decisions that are like, you're second guessing yourself. You're like, that's definitely what I don't want.
Good.
If I want it, I'll stick around and figure out how that works out, and I'll put everything into it. But if I don't want it, there's no point hanging around.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
Okay. So
it's like such a great therapy session.
I know, this is a nice, it's nice for both of us. It's like a great little vent and processing
I know.
experiment.
Exactly.
I'm trying to decide where I want to go because I have so much to ask you, but I'm trying to, because I feel we've covered so much. But you posted something on your Instagram recently.
Usually gets me in trouble.
No, it was a beautiful post. Okay. And you were explaining how you just opened up KINOYA in London. Right. And it was a struggle for you emotionally.
Massively.
I mean, that's how I interpreted it. That's not what you said.
Oh, you are right.
But an emotional struggle because you... sorry, I'm like, my mic's over. Can you hear me,
You're
everybody?
so relaxed now.
Yeah, but you were basically saying that it was an emotional struggle because you were opening up a new restaurant in a new country with a 6-month-old baby. Yeah. Leaving your other kids in Dubai. Yeah. And that's a lot.
It is.
Just having a baby and traveling, I find a lot to process. So with all of that, so how are you feeling now? Oh, obviously you're back now, so it's fine. But when you were there?
Crazy. It was a lot emotionally. I think, can I talk about something like, it's quite personal, but it's important because I think it's something that I'm delving into a lot. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder last year.
Oh, wow. I did not
Which
know
was
that.
a life-changing diagnosis. I'm talking about it very, very, like, I'm slowly bringing it into, like, I guess conversations. Privately a lot, because I feel like it was such an eye-opener for me, but like on a, like very gently going into what that means. Mm-hmm. But, I was diagnosed, 2 years ago, and it was life-changing because it made me...
before your pregnancy?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and that's, the diagnosis is what changed everything positively in my life.
Wow.
Like, wow, everything made sense, everything changed, everything was wonderful. Like, it was literally like wearing glasses with, not being able to see and putting glasses on for the first time. And I understood so much about myself after that. But one of the things about having bipolar disorder is that there's brilliance to you, and then there's a lot of stuff that just gets left, to understood or to understand and unpacked. There's a lot of messiness that goes with that as well. But they go hand in hand. You are probably like a very high functioning, very productive individual, but you can also have it in you to have extremely low lows. With London happening and having so much insight into having this condition, and a lot of work that, self-work that I've done for myself in the last 2 years, you have to keep yourself in check because it is the very nature of this is you can accelerate and you can work at absolutely crazy speed, but you're also very capable of crashing. And I had to remind myself of that every single day during the opening. Wow. And having postpartum, like I had just given birth 6 months ago. There was so much, there were so many moving parts. So I think you have to keep whether you have any kind of, mental health issues or not, I think you have to keep yourself in check always.
Wow. Well, this is a pivot.
This is a definite pivot. It's a life pivot.
This is a big pivot.
Sorry. Yeah. Plot twist.
No,
I was saving this for you.
We got two.
Yeah.
But so you took this diagnosis very positively, it seems, and it changed you. It validated how you had been feeling probably for a very long time. Yeah,
no, of course. It's like having somebody tell you, good and bad, why you are the person you are.
There's an explanation.
There's an explanation for everything suddenly,
that
and you
must feel so.
It's very liberating.
Yeah,
it's freeing. It's Also you stop. There was a lot of you appreciate the positive and you want to correct the negative, and you want to we're always walking that thin line in life anyway between chaos and order, and you have to remind yourself that this is something that you have to work at. Yeah. But no, that was life-changing, and I really do believe that, I wouldn't... So many amazing things have happened in my life since then, and I'm really grateful for that. So London was very much as much as it was also something that I knew I had to be very, very careful and how I'm navigating around that.
Well, I mean, that's really much easier said than done when you're opening a restaurant in Harrods and you have a 6-month-old. So I'm sure that must have been such a balance for you in I mean, I can't even imagine, honestly.
Yeah, but like at the same time, now that I know about, you know, how people with bipolar disorder function, it's also like you thrive on acceleration. You thrive on, this was like, but also then, exactly,
you have to be, what do you do to sort of counter the lows?
You can't ever get to a crazy acceleration. You can't mentally. You can work, you know, it's about, because it's manias, right? So it's like highs and lows. So you have to make sure that your highs are very, very understood in your mind. You don't get ahead with them, like as in you don't get in your head about them.
Got it.
So it's like the funny, like I always say, the term I use is you gotta control the volume, because it is like a volume button, right? You gotta stay at a very balanced volume, because if it goes too high, it's that kind of thing. You can't ever be too excited because that can crash into. So there were all these different elements, and I think it's important that now that it's been 2 years, and it's going to be 2 years, and I didn't even touch this for a really long time in terms of talking about it, but now I'm feeling more and more comfortable talking about it, because I feel like
thank you for talking
actually this
about
is the first time I'm talking about it publicly.
Well, your first podcast,
I know,
shockingly. And
what are you? You're a witch.
A white witch. But the first time you're talking, first podcast and first time you're talking about something so close to you and so personal, which has a lot of, I would say, taboo around it for most people.
It's so stigmatized.
Stigmatized, exactly.
It's crazy. And I think that's what took me, you know, like you have to process it yourself. And then you can start thinking about how you want that narrative to be. And, you know, and it's taken me nearly 2 years to talk about it. But it's so big, it's such a big part of me that I can't talk about where I am without talking about this.
I feel like you would give people that had this condition or this disorder so much hope.
Yeah.
Like you of all people are holding this flag, and look what you've done, look what you've accomplished. And I also feel anyone that I have known to be bipolar are very creative people.
Yeah, they are.
Like, and extremely intellectual.
So the first thing I did when I found out, I went home and I was like, famous people who have bipolar disorder. And I was
who did you find?
I'm like, were they hot? Were they intelligent?
Who did you find?
Selena Gomez. Oh! No, it was just like top of my head. But then Kanye.
Oh yeah, Kanye's known.
Kanye needs to be on his medication.
And
that
also
just
keep that volume.
Volume, yes.
In you know, visualize the volume button a bit more.
100%. But like again,
I don't think he wants to though. I think he is loud and proud about just being that way.
But I think that's the misconception is, and that's the first thing that happened was, so you know, you are by default, a lot of people with bipolar disorder are extremely creative. You know, your neurons are different, right? Exactly. So the first fear that kicks in is that, well, if I start getting the help that I need for this and stabilize,
will that switch off?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
And that's the fear. That's why a lot of people. Yes.
Okay.
And that's why they start to eventually spiral. Is because you do need that help and you do need that clarity. And in fact, I've found I've only made better decisions, and I only operate in a much more stabilized way, which is healthy for my mind, my body, my friends, my friendships, my relationships since then, because you do need that. Like,
are there side effects?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, I was very lucky in terms of, in terms of like my psychiatrist and who I got help from. And I put in a lot of work as well. Like, you know, therapy was non-negotiable.
Yes. And
it goes hand in hand. Yes, you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life, but you also need to do self-work. And I was saying to my husband the other day, we were talking about it. We had a friend over and we were talking about this, and I was saying, you know, for me, the stakes are higher than ever. I'm working at my best capacity right now. Like, there's so much to look forward to. My children are healthy and on to doing great things as well. Now more than ever, I really want to look after myself. Yeah. So it's only been positive. And I think, again, I wish there was more conversation about how people are feeling mentally.
Well, it takes you to start that conversation.
I hope
and people
so.
That, not you, I mean people who are like you, to have that conversation. And like, you should be so proud of yourself for feeling comfortable enough to just do it now.
Yeah, no, for sure I do. And I feel like more people need to also be accepting of it, because like you said, it's very, you know, there's so much stigma around it.
But there's so much positive, I think, that comes with it.
There really is. I mean, look at Kanye.
I feel for him.
I know, but you know, he's okay.
Yeah.
He's okay. He'll be okay.
There are bigger problems right now.
That's true.
So, wow.
Yeah, sorry, that was quite a pivot.
No, wow. Thank you for sharing that. Like, really.
Yeah, thank you for being the person who allowed that kind of candid conversation as well. I don't, you know, I always knew that I was going to talk about it when it felt like, so right. I did it on a podcast.
Well done, Gail.
Yeah.
Bravo you. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
So, we're coming to the end. I can't believe that was a quick one. Like, that flew.
Yes.
But we're coming to the end, and this question I feel is really cliche, but I'm going to ask it because of the number of foodies and food scene people that are going to be watching this, because they're going to want to listen to you.
Right.
And it's only fair to them. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you need to give some advice to people starting their own restaurants, creating their own concepts, and wanting success in F&B, what would it be?
Look, you have to be prepared to work really hard. That goes without saying. But I also feel like not everybody's cut out for it. Like, do you love it enough? It takes over your entire life. It's really, really all-consuming.
So do you love it enough?
Do you love it enough? Also, are you like good enough? Because there's a lot of, you know, people be like, this is great. It's like, yeah, it is. But like, is it going to be great enough for you to... How great? Like, and be honest with yourself. Like, really be honest with. I had to have that conversation with myself so often that, you know, there's a crazy imposter syndrome even now, because
and you're already very hard on yourself.
Yeah, right. And I think that you have to have that hard conversation with yourself. Like, can you? Because everybody wants to start something cool. Everybody wants to work for themselves, but like, that also comes with crazy anxiety and instability. And are you okay with all of that? Because you're going to have to give it all that. And, you know, it's just really hard work. And if you're okay with it, I always feel like if it comes from a place of pure love, then the commitment's easy. Yeah. And for me, it was. Like, I don't ever go to work and feel like, you know,
Get me out of here. I'm not in the mood today.
My whole family jokes about it, that I like being at work more than I like being at home. Yeah. And I don't think that that's entirely false, you know, because I feel like my work is the one thing that is entirely about me. Yeah. I'm not a wife. I'm not a mother. I am just doing something for myself. And I think there is a level of selfishness that goes into creating something big for yourself. And you also have to be open to that. So I think you have to really just put everything on the table and go, you know, like, everything, and then see where it takes you. Be patient with it. Patience is a lot. 2 years of, it was a year of producing content. I mean, it's 7 years, this thing, of like this thing that I've been doing. And for a lot of it, there wasn't like, oh, I'm going to open a restaurant. And then none of these things were in the realm of sight. Never. Yeah. It was just like one foot in front of the other. And
focusing on what's in front of you, not like looking so far ahead and creating all these big plans. It was just...
Restaurant was a pipe dream, like any restaurant. And, you know...
First restaurant in Dubai, again, I have to say it. Second restaurant in Harrods.
I know. But I didn't think of that. Like, and
no, but that's the thing. I feel because you're not thinking about it, and you're literally just putting the love into what you're doing.
You know, I was there 10 days ago, whatever, and I remember messaging my partner, my business partner, and saying to him, I said, you know what, I completely forgot we're doing this for money as well, because when you're in the thick of it, you are so like immersed that you forget that you're doing this as a business as well. But that's the love it takes. You put in all of yourself, and sometimes you will not get that return, and you have to accept that as well.
That's the hard part.
Yeah, you won't.
Because sometimes it doesn't always work out.
No, it doesn't work out, and you have to be prepared for that when you go in, because you can't be mad at people or anything when it doesn't work out.
But then going back to your other point, it's knowing when to leave.
It's knowing when to leave. Exactly. You know, it's knowing how much of yourself to give every project is different too. Like KINOYA was really a lot of emotional attachment. You know, like I know every single nook and cranny in that place. London is a different, like it's a different elevation of that love.
Yeah.
You have to know how much of yourself, because there's not enough, like an unlimited amount of yourself to give these things.
Yeah.
So you have to know, like measure it of how much of yourself you're investing every time.
Yeah.
So I think people have to have that conversation with themselves, because a lot of people be like, I want this, but they don't want everything that comes with it. You know, I
think a lot of people are unaware of when they say they want something, of what comes with that.
For sure.
You don't know until you try. And once you're in it, you're like, oh, this is not what I signed up for.
Totally.
This is not what I wanted. And from somebody who's done so many different things in different industries, I've realized that the hard way. But I'm learning and testing. You know, I'm seeing what I don't want.
Right. And
what I don't want has been very interesting.
But you still have that drive, right? Because you're like, I want to do.
I'm gonna figure it out. This is definitely a huge part of it.
I love this. What you're doing is amazing, and it's again, like you probably take it for granted how good you are at it.
Well, I just love talking. I just love
very good at it.
Not talking, but I love talking to interesting people who have something to say.
And you know, that's a skill. You know why? Because people like talking about themselves. There are very few people who like listening to other people or like hearing their story.
Listening's a hard skill to learn.
It really is. I say this to my husband all the time, because I say he is genuinely, what makes him interesting is he's interested in other people.
Yeah.
And I think you are like that. You are interested in what other people have to say, because we're surrounded by people who just want to talk about themselves.
I think you become who I become, who I am, and people become who they are by listening.
Yeah.
I think listening is, yeah. Everyone can get better at it. Everyone can get better at listening, but
there's like a sense of vulnerability in what you're doing and what people around you and around this table are doing as well. Like it's cathartic to talk about.
Well, you just shared something very personal, which I don't think you were planning on sharing.
100% not.
Yeah.
Like I still don't know how I feel about that, but no,
Thank you.
Pleasure.
No, really, that was just. I love this.
Me too.
I love this.
Me too.
So me and my husband were supposed to go on a date night today, so I'm going to suggest KINOYA.
Oh.
Because we haven't been, not because, honestly, we don't go out that much anymore just together on a date night.
I get
so
that.
I'm going to see if we can do that.
Tell me if you want to go. I will make sure that.
No, I'm not gonna like use you. I'm just going to show up and say like, had a great meal. But this was incredible.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being so vulnerable and honest. And
no, it's
people are going to love this one.
I hope so. I hope they're not intimidated by.
No, listen, that's anyways, that's for another one. But
you've talked, right? We've talked. I
don't find you intimidating.
There you go.
Yeah, but I didn't come to your supper club, so maybe
no.
I don't find you intimidating at all. Like, there's not one thing that's come across intimidating to me.
See, this podcast has done exactly what it was supposed to do.
Usually, yeah. Anyways, I love you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Lean's house.
Yeah.